He used to raise his voice. He used to beg to be understood. He used to twist himself into someone he thought they could love. But after 60, something shifted. He no longer fights to stay. He no longer explains his silence. He no longer betrays himself to belong. Freedom, he learned, isn't about being alone. It's about finally coming home to yourself. This isn't a rebellion. It's a return. To the man he was before the world taught him to chase what never stayed. Leave a quiet comment if this feels like your truth. This piece cost me everything and it was worth it. He doesn't ask for permission to be himself. There was a time not so long ago when he would pause before answering to ensure his truth didn't upset anyone. He'd laugh at jokes that didn't land. He stayed at gatherings long after his energy had left. Say, "Sure, I'm fine," when he was anything but. Why? Because he thought being agreeable was the same as being kind. Adjusting himself to others' comfort was the price of being loved. But at 60, something shifts. He no longer treats his personality like a resume. He no longer edits himself for approval. He doesn't shrink, so others can stretch. If he needs quiet, he takes it. If he disagrees, he says so without malice, but without apology. He wears soft cotton, not stiff collars. Eats dinner when he's hungry, not when it's expected. And most of all, he knows this. Being true to yourself isn't rebellion. It's returning. He doesn't raise his voice to be heard. He just stands still and lets the silence speak for him. That's not arrogance. That's liberation. He's no longer in the business of pleasing everyone. In his 30s, he wanted to be liked. In his 40s, he wanted to be respected. In his 50s, he wanted peace. Now, he wants the truth. And truth rarely comes with applause. He used to overcommit to avoid disappointing others. Used to answer texts right away, just to seem available. Used to sit through long dinners pretending to enjoy shallow conversations. But now he's realized, every yes that comes from guilt is a quiet betrayal of self. So he says, no more often. Not rudely, just firmly. No, he doesn't want to go. No, he doesn't feel like talking right now. No, he doesn't owe anyone a reason for protecting his energy. It's not selfish. It's sane. He's not withdrawing from the world. He's simply no longer auditioning for roles he never wanted. The truth is, he no longer fears being misunderstood by people who never took the time to know him. He's not angry. He's just done performing. And in that stillness, he's finally found what no praise ever gave him: self-respect. He's not afraid of quiet anymore. There was a time when silence felt like punishment. The absence of conversation, the empty room, the clock ticking too loud. He used to fill the void with music, the television, even meaningless talk, anything to drown out the discomfort. But now, quiet isn't empty. It's sacred. Mornings are no longer rushed. He doesn't reach for his phone the moment he opens his eyes. He listens not to updates, but to birds, to wind, to his breath. In the stillness, his nervous system softens. His mind stops running. His heart speaks gently, honestly. He used to fear the silence because it revealed everything he was running from. Now he welcomes it because it reminds him of everything he's reclaimed. There is no awkwardness in his solitude, no craving for constant connection. He's discovered that the most trustworthy companion in the world is the quiet between thoughts if you're brave enough to sit with it. And now, he sits, he listens, he breathes. And in that silence, he is finally free. He doesn't apologize for saying no. There was a time when no felt harsh. So he softened it with excuses, wrapped it in long explanations, tried to make others feel better, even while betraying his own needs. But now, he's done cushioning his truth. No longer needs permission. It no longer carries guilt. He won't loan money just because someone's family. He won't show up to events he never wanted to attend. He won't say yes to someone else's urgency when it costs him his peace. He doesn't get angry. He doesn't justify. He simply declines. Because he's learned that every time he said yes to please others, he quietly said no to himself. And he's done doing that. He's not cold. He's just clear. No is not a rejection of others. It's an affirmation of who he's become. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't slam doors. He just says what he means and lets the silence hold it. That's not distance. That's self-respect. He protects his time like a fortress. When he was younger, time felt like a wide, open highway. Something to burn, to spend, to offer freely. But now, every hour feels intentional. Every moment sacred. He no longer fills his calendar to feel useful. No longer says, "Let me know," to people who only call when they need something. His time isn't up for grabs anymore. It's curated. He doesn't entertain energy that feels off. Doesn't chase conversations that lead nowhere. Doesn't waste hours fixing what was never his to fix. He knows what a peaceful morning is worth. He knows how a slow walk can heal more than advice. He knows that some days, the most productive thing he can do is rest. Now, he invests his time the way a wise man guards gold, with discernment, with grace, with full awareness that he doesn't get it back. And if someone sees his boundaries as selfish, they were never meant to be close in the first place. He loves without needing to possess. He used to think love meant effort. That to be chosen, he had to chase. That to be kept, he had to compromise constantly. But now, he loves without gripping. If she stays, it's beautiful. If she leaves, it's accepted. He doesn't beg for attention. He doesn't argue for space. He doesn't demand proof, because love, to him, isn't about ownership. It's about resonance. He no longer asks, "Do you need me?" He asks, "Does this feel like peace?" If the answer is yes, he stays, gently. If the answer is no, he walks, quietly. He still feels deeply, still hopes, still offers presence. But he never again makes himself small for someone else's comfort. Love now looks like shared silence, a kind gaze, an absence of fear. No power plays, no pressure, no performing. Because finally, after all the years of trying to be everything to someone else, he realized the only thing love should cost is fear, not freedom. He walks away from what no longer feels right. He used to hold on to friendships that drained him, to routines that no longer served him, to people who stayed out of habit, not respect, because letting go felt like failure, like giving up. But now, he understands something sacred. You don't have to hate something to know it's no longer good for you. So he walks, not out of anger, not to make a statement, but because the quiet voice inside says, "You've done enough." Literally, he leaves the table when respect is no longer being served. He exits conversations that feel like performances. He closes doors that creak with resentment, not care. He doesn't wait for explosions anymore. He reads the tension in the air and bows out gracefully. And here's the thing, he doesn't feel guilty, because he's finally learned that peace is not found in proving his worth. It's found in protecting it. And sometimes the most powerful thing a man can do is leave without a speech. He redefines success on his own terms. He used to chase titles, bonuses, recognition. Success was external, measured in applause, achievements, and approval. But after Treads, he sees it differently. Success now looks like waking up without anxiety, making coffee slowly, spending a day not being productive, but being present. He no longer cares how impressive his life looks. He cares how authentic it feels. Success is being kind without being weak, being alone without being lonely, saying no and not explaining, choosing himself even when it confuses others. He doesn't wear suits much anymore. He wears comfort, confidence, and silence. He no longer needs to be the man who has it all. He just wants to be the man who kept his soul. And if that doesn't look like success to the world, he's finally okay with that. Because what he traded in status, he gained in self-worth. He accepts that not everyone will understand him. He's had the conversations, the explanations, the exhausting attempts to be gotten. But now, he no longer explains why he prefers solitude over company, why he declined the reunion, why he didn't reply right away. Because here's the truth. People who truly see you don't need a map, and people who demand one rarely care to follow it. He used to take it personally when others misread him, called him distant, cold, withdrawn. Now, he knows it's not about him. It's about how uncomfortable silence makes them feel. He stopped translating his truth into their language. He stopped softening his calm to make others less uneasy. Some people left. Some stayed. Some never really saw him. And all of it, perfectly okay. Because he finally understands, peace doesn't come from being understood. It comes from no longer needing to be. He chooses peace over passion, and he's not sorry. There was a time he mistook chaos for chemistry. Late-night arguments felt like deep connection. Emotional highs and lows like proof of love. The louder it was, the more real it seemed. But not anymore. Now, if a conversation starts to feel like a tug-of-war, he lets go. If a new romance comes wrapped in tension, he doesn't unwrap it. He walks away from the spark if it smells like smoke. Because here's what age taught him. Passion without peace isn't love. It's addiction. He no longer needs fireworks. He wants a fireplace, slow, warm, lasting. He seeks the kind of presence that doesn't raise his blood pressure. The kind of touch that feels like a grounding wire, not a lightning strike. Passion that burns too hot eventually burns through everything. He knows. He's lived it. Now, he wants someone who doesn't interrupt his silence, but fits inside it. And if that sounds boring to others, He smiles, because calm is what happens when a man stops calling the storm romance. He's comfortable being alone because he likes his own company. There was a time when the thought of eating dinner alone made him anxious. He'd reach for his phone, turn on the television, fill the room with noise, any noise. But slowly, he stopped fearing the empty chair across from him, stopped apologizing for tables for one, and started listening to his breath, his thoughts, his body. He began to hear what he'd been running from for decades, and discovered he actually liked that man. Now, he walks without a destination, talks to himself without embarrassment, cooks a meal for one with the same care as if someone else were watching, because someone is watching him, and for once, that's enough. He doesn't seek distractions. He seeks depth. He doesn't dread the quiet. He protects it. Solitude used to sting. Now, it soothes. And if someone ever asks, "Don't you get lonely?" he answers with a soft smile, "Not when I enjoy who I'm with." He doesn't wait for external validation anymore. He used to chase it without even realizing. Praise from coworkers, approval from partners, recognition from strangers. Each compliment was a brief breath of air, but never enough to fill the lungs. Now, he's his own validation. He no longer needs to be the loudest in the room, no longer needs to be liked to feel valuable. He doesn't need to explain why he's happy or prove that he is. He doesn't post to be seen. He doesn't perform to be remembered. He simply lives, because he finally knows worth isn't something you earn. It's something you return to. He measures his days by how deeply he breathed, by how softly he moved through the world, by how few times he betrayed himself. And when he lays down at night, he doesn't replay the applause. He listens for one thing: did I show up for me today? If the answer is yes, he sleeps well. Because at this age, true freedom is this: liking the man you are. Even when no one's watching, he sees life as something to savor, not control. He used to be obsessed with order, schedules, to-do lists, milestones. Everything had to mean progress, or it felt like failure. But now, if the sun doesn't rise on time, he lights a candle. If plans fall through, he enjoys the detour. If nothing gets done, he still sleeps just fine. Because he finally learned, life isn't a machine to manage. It's a melody to feel. He doesn't fight the river anymore. He lets it carry him slowly, deliberately. When love knocks, he opens. When loss visits, he doesn't resist. He no longer defines days by what he accomplished, but by how deeply he lived them. He laughs when it rains, pours another cup, calls an old friend, or doesn't. The pressure to control every detail is gone, replaced by a new habit: presence. That's what freedom feels like now. Not power over life, but peace within it. He honors his pain without letting it own him. There are memories he doesn't talk about, faces that still visit in dreams, moments he would never wish on anyone. But he's not bitter. He carries the pain not like a wound, but like a map of where he's been. He doesn't pretend nothing happened. He just no longer lets it define who he is. Because here's the truth: you can't reach peace without walking through fire, and he walked through his. Now, when others ask about his calm, they rarely see the storm that came before it. He doesn't tell those stories to seek sympathy. He tells them when needed, so others know. You can make it through too. Every scar has a name. Every silence has a cause. And every smile he wears today was earned. Because a man who's faced himself no longer fears being misunderstood. He doesn't seek pity. He walks with quiet dignity. And that, too, is freedom. He knows what he can't get back, and that's why he's free. Time. Youth. A few people he'll never stop missing. He used to resist that truth. Cling to the past. Try to outrun regret. But not anymore. Now, he walks slower on purpose. Not to waste time, but to feel it. He knows this moment, this one, is the only one guaranteed. So he's stopped giving his attention to people who don't value it. Stopped chasing relationships that confuse urgency with care. Stopped apologizing for moving at his own pace. Because he's learned something younger men rarely grasp. Wanting less is how you feel full. He no longer needs the big win, the fancy title, the perfect ending. He just needs mornings where he breathes freely, evenings where he feels whole, and a life that fits like an old sweater, not a rented tuxedo. That's what makes him free, not what he lost, but what he chose to stop reaching for. He's not what society calls free. He doesn't travel the world. He doesn't post selfies. He doesn't make big speeches. But ask the man over 60, sitting quietly with a warm cup and a clear conscience, and he'll tell you, freedom is waking up without regret and going to bed without resentment. No more masks. No more auditions. No more trying to win love that doesn't feel like home. If that resonates with you, Leave a comment. This piece wasn't cheap, but I'd never trade it back.